So today we're going to talk about the Mishkan. I first want to make the following a general observation. What you're looking at here is the basic component of the Mishkan, the body of the Mishkan, which, as you can see, look at it again. They are vertical planks, 10 cubits high, placed in silver sockets at the base, called the Adonim. And there's much more detail to it, but I just want to point this out. Having said that, I want to explain the following. The Mishkan was built by the donations of the people. One of them was obligatory, and the rest were voluntary. The obligatory one was a standard amount, namely a half shekel. A half shekel had to be given by everybody, and now actually not everybody, it's only people in the army age, from 20 to 60 men. All gave more and no less than half shekel, melted down, and formed the silver bases that you just saw for the boards. The boards were placed in them and interlocking with a very simple but very secure and beautiful system described at length in the Torah. Okay, so this conclusion, the silver sockets are made by a standard across the board mandatory contribution of a half shekel. As for the rest of the Mishkan, which was made, there was copper, there was gold, there was wood, there were tapestries of all kinds. And dyes, and wool, and goat's hair, and everything else, the Torah says, anybody can give as much as they want. Men, women, children, no limitation. As much as you wish. I want to explain this spiritually. Why is it that the foundation is A, everybody gives the same amount, and B, who only gives it the people between 20 and 60? Explanation. First of all, I'm going to explain the height. I mentioned a moment ago that the height of the boards were 10 cubits. Now, immediately, this makes an association for you. We've already learned, we've had occasion to learn, right? We know that the soul has 10 faculties, 3 intellectual and 7 emotional. Chachma, Bina, Das, the 3 intellectual faculties, and then we have 7 emotions, and you know that the 7 emotions are represented. We wind that tefillin 7 times around our arm with the tefillin facing the heart, because that's the seat of the emotions. The idea of the hand tefillin is the binding, the control of the emotions. That's how a guy has to start every day. Before you get out in the world, get a hold of yourself. Don't let the emotions of the day run amok. So he's got to tie himself up, and then he can go out. Okay, so that's the 7 emotions, and the three faculties of intellect. The physical brain actually has 3 parts. It's also reflected in the shin, which is on the film. It has 3 strokes. The other side has 4, 7, because the intellect has to, the end, affect the emotion. But specifically because, I don't want to go into this now, but the 3rd faculty of intellect splits. Das, it's Chacham bin Das. Das splits into 2, but that's not for now. So in general, the head tefillin is intellect. It's 3, and the 3rd splits into 2. Heads out to 7, because it connects to the emotions. But that's the world of intellect, the world of the emotion. All right, that's the 10. That's 10. Why do we have these 10 attributes? Because we are all made in the image of God. And Hashem has chosen to manifest himself through a system of 10 divine faculties, divine intellect, God's divine emotion, God's love, God's judgment, and all the various attributes of Hashem, which you call spheres, the 10 spheres. All right, that's the 10. The sockets represent the foundation. The foundation of the gestalt, the Gestalt, which means a person, a human being, intellect and emotion, the foundation has to be commitment, surrender. Kabbalat ol, Kabbalah's oil, accepting the yoke of heaven. Or in the words of the Jewish ancestors before they received the Torah, Nasa den Nishma. And that's across the board. Surrender, devotion is across the board. That's why everybody gave an equal half shekel, equally. Not talking about how much you learn, how much you feel, where we all differ. That's the 10. We're not the same intellectually or emotionally, but in terms of, are you in? Yes, sir. Committed. That has to be equal. That comes from a deep place in the soul where we are all Jewish equally. And that's why that donation, the half shekel, everybody gave the same. However, here's the interesting thing. It represents commitment, the foundation, but who gave it? Only the adults. Why? Because here's the paradox. You can't expect this kind of commitment from a child, necessarily. It's only once you've developed and matured, the 10, then we ask of you, okay, you're intelligent, emotions developed. Now we have to appreciate that the foundation of all relationships, both with God and everyone, is loyalty and commitment. But who's that asked from? Only the mature person. So who's giving the foundation? It's the mature adult. And they by the way, represented the entire people. That's another discussion, but this segment of the population from 20 to 60 represented everybody, 600,000. But the message now we're saying is, you've got to be an adult. To expect commitment, one has to mature. And then dig deep and give a commitment that is beyond your mind, beyond your emotion, and I'm in. That's demanded and expected from every mature person equally. The rest of the donations, everybody gave according to their level, because intellect, emotion, we're all different. Now, I just want to add, on top of the actual building were these tapestries, 3, or another opinion, there were 4. Now, not to go into detail now, because that also represents something in the soul. We have faculties that are higher than intellect. Willpower is higher than intellect. For example, and there's levels to willpower. Rotzen, tainug, which means the pleasure to be alive, very deep part of the soul that's far beyond a rational experience. I want to live because. This is way beyond that. And likewise, will. Somebody wants something, it's much more powerful than intellect. It hovers over intellect. I like the tapestries, they enveloped, hung over the Mishkan. The power of will envelops and the other faculties envelops the consciousness of a person. Here too, people gave according to their whatever prompted them, because not everybody's will drive is the same. We're very different there. It's very unique. So that was left open, each one according to their individual contribution. So that, again, everything was up to the individual to contribute, because we're not the same intellectually, emotionally, and not even on the tapestry level, which are these deeper powers of drive and willpower and so on. But the foundation, that's the message here, of the adult, everybody gives equally. That's expected from all equally. All right. That was a general introduction. Now I want to zero in on the Aron, on the ARK. Did we talk about this last year? I don't remember. The 2 opinions of Rashi and Ramban. Lucy, remember something like that? If we did, it'll be a bit.
When you sent it around yesterday, I saw something.
Yeah, I said
good.
that yesterday.
We'll hear it again.
Did we learn about?
I saw yesterday.
Did we learn about it here?
I think so.
We did.
Possible.
Okay. All right.
Something I remember, but it's
right,
good. The Chazar, it's good.
Yeah, Chazar review is good. So let me just show you the Aron, and we'll make it So this is the end result of the Aron. So you're looking at like this. The bottom part is a box, a container, 2.5 cubits in the width, 1.5 high, and 1.5 deep. On top of it is what's called the kapiris, which means the cover, out of which is hammered out of one single piece of gold, 2 chruvim, or in English, cherubim. We'll soon see what they are. And then there are 2 poles that are never to be removed, that are inserted in 2 rings on each side for purposes of transportation. They were carried. It was carried. Now, what I want to look at specifically is this. The ARK cover. Let's see it here. Here, by the way, is a picture. This is the luchas, the 10 commandments, which are made of, hewn out of blue sapphire. And they were rectangle, placed inside the box. Each one was 6 handbreadths by 6 handbreadths and fitted exactly in the box. The little room on the side, that's where the Sefer Torah was placed, which Moish wrote, according to one opinion. Anyway, that's another discussion. What exactly was inside? And what I want to look at today is the cover of the ARK. They're showing you, but interesting, they show you here how it was made of one piece of gold and eventually beaten out. So let's look at the text. If you have the text in front of you, not the headline, but let's look at it. The second paragraph. Let's read it quickly and get the point here. The Torah says, "V'nasata sakapoides, you shall place the cover ala orim v'lamayil, on top of the ARK, on top of it. Ve'ala orim titinus ha'edus, and into the orim you shall place the edus, the testimony, referring to the luchas, the 10 commandments. Asher etzedilech, which I will give you. Place them in the orim, in the ARK." Rashi quotes that the words "Ve'ala orim titin ha'edus," and into the ARK you shall place the edus. Says Rashi, "Lo yadati lama nichva." I don't know why the Torah repeats this instruction to put the luchas in the ARK. This is verse 21. Sharikvan Nemar, it's already stated in verse Pasuk Tez Zayin, Pasuk 16. There it says already in a verse earlier, "V'nasata ela orin es ha'edus." You shall place the luchas, the 10 commandments, in the orin. Why is it repeated again in Pasuk 21 when it said already in Pasuk 16? Rashi answers by the repetition the Torah is coming to say. When the ARK is independent without having its cover placed on it yet, that's when that put the Eidos, the 10 commandments in it. And then put the cover on it. Meaning to say as follows. I instruct you to make an ARK, and I told you to make the box container and to make the cover. Do not put the cover on. You've made your ARK. Now, take the cover off and put in the Eidos. Don't do that. By the Torah repeating, you shall place into the ARK the Eidos, put it into the ARK, the container, before you place the cover. And then put the cover on top, the kapiris. Go to the bottom paragraph. We'll continue. Rashi. So what does it come out according to Rashi? She'orin levadei, the lower box alone, belia kapiris, without the cover with the cheruvim, nikra b'shem orin. That's called orin. Meaning, according to Rashi, we'll see the Ramban argues, she'orin lo keli b'fnei atzmai. The ARK is an independent sacred vessel. And the cover is another vessel. There are 2 sacred vessels. One is placed, or 2 sacred artifacts or objects. One is placed on top of the other. Where do you place the kapiris, the cheruvim? You place it on the orin, but they're 2 separate sacred objects. That's according to Rashi. The Ramban, Nachmanides, argues and says, no, the ARK is the whole, it's one entity. First, you make it one entity. You make the bottom, you make the top. It's 2 halves of a whole. It's one sacred vessel, we call it a keli, an object. And that's called an order. And why does the Torah repeat it? It gives the instruction, it gives us another answer. What's the practical difference? What difference does it make whether it's 2 or 1? Again, the argument. According to Rashi, we have 2 sacred vessels, one of the 2 sacred objects. According to the Ramban, it's one thing. It's a container with its cover. It's one entity. What's the practical difference? The practical difference is, friends, when you make it, when a person makes a sacred object, tefillin, tzitzis, matzah on Pesach even, and certainly the sacred objects of the base of the Mishkan, you have to have a specific intent. What are you fashioning? So the question is here, when they made the top, Betzalel was the one that did it, and he had help. Betzalel was the main architect, not architect, but the engineer. What are you supposed to think when you make the ark? The cover, the kapoides, the cover. According to Rashi, not supposed to think, I am now making the Aron. You're not making the Aron. You're making a separate keli. I am now making, or we are now making, the kapoides. That's according to Rashi, because they're 2 separate things. According to Ramban, the intent is, no, I'm making the Aron. You have one uniform intent when you make both the bottom and the top. It's the same kavanah, the same intent. According to Rashi, it's 2 separate intents. And this is critical because the wrong intent disqualifies the object. Okay, so that's a practical difference in what kavanah they had when they made the top, the kapoides. Now, let's understand the depth of this by first introducing another argument between Rashi and the Ramban. That is, the cherubim I showed you, the angelic forms on top. What exactly were they? According to Rashi, the Torah leaves it deliberately vague and open. According to Rashi, it's all from our sages, it was the image of a boy and a girl, the faces, their wings outstretched, hovering over the ark, as you saw, hovering on top of it, this cover, all of a solid ingot of gold, and they were a boy and a girl. According to the Ramban, they were angels. So they were kind of abstract. I can't imagine, I don't know how they would have formed it, but angels. Let's understand this difference. And we're going to have of Rashi and Ramban. And their different opinion as to what were the images of the cherubim is consistent with whether it's one uniform sacred object or it's 2. Let's talk about the Ramban. Nachmanides, the Ramban says like this, as we just learned, it's one sacred object, and what's sitting on top? Angels. What's the meaning? As everybody knows, the Aron is the most sacred keli, sacred object of the Mishkan. Where is it placed? It's placed in the Holy of Holies. That's where it was placed. Hashem says, I will speak to you from between the staves, those poles. That's where the divine speech spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. When Hashem commanded all of the commandments that the 40 years in the desert, Moshe would stand in the outside the Holy of Holies in a state of meditation, and Rashi explains the divine presence would come down and then speak, and Moshe would hear. And it was a mighty voice that could shatter mountains, but only Moshe heard it. According to the Ramban, it's very simple, obvious. What the Aron represents, it represents spirituality. The Torah, first and foremost, the Torah, the Luchas, the 10 Commandments in the Aron represent, no, they don't represent, they are the Torah. The 10 Commandments have 620 letters, and there are 620 commandments, 613 from the Torah, and 7 which the sages added. Total of 620. As Rabbi Sajagon explains, tracing all 613 to the 10 commandments. 6 and 1 and 3 is 10. And then the 7, which the sages add, 620. which by the way spells the word keser, crown. Keser is 20 and Tov is 400 and the Reish is 200 and 620. We speak about the crown of Torah. We put a crown literally on the Torah. That crown represents the 10 Commandments, 620 letters, the Keter. So the Torah, on the top of the Torah, angels. Angels, which by the way also represent, because the angels had protested when the Torah was given initially, and Moish argued with them, and he won the argument, and now even the angels agree. So heaven has given its consent. The Torah has come down to the world. Angels, Torah, spirituality at its height. And that's where God speaks to us. In simple language, God speaks to us through the words of the Torah. And in the words of the Torah, what's the Torah conveying? Heaven. Torah is a piece of heaven on earth. Angels, the malachim, on top of the Torah, represented there in the Holy of Holies. That's where heaven kisses and touches earth. That's where Hashem speaks to us. And that's where a Jew draws his inspiration and looks to. When you daven, we face Yerushalayim. And if you live in Yerushalayim, let's actually go back. You're living in the diaspora, you face Eretz Yisrael. If you're in Eretz Yisrael, you face Yerushalayim. If you're in Yerushalayim, you face the Beis HaMikdash. And if you're in the Beis HaMikdash, you face the Holy of Holies. And according to the Ramban, it's straightforward. Rashi says no. Rashi says no. Different opinion. We're going to see they're not arguing it. We'll soon see. And the Rabbi always explains every argument in Torah. It's not arguing. You're right. You're wrong. I'm right. No, chas v'sholem. It's all elu divlekim chaim, and it's different levels, and they're complementary. So let's address Rashi now. Paradoxically, Rashi is much deeper. Why do I say paradoxically? Because the Ramban was a Makubal. He was a Kabbalist. His whole commentary is very spiritual and very deep. It's Drush and Kabbalah. Rashi wrote his commentary for a 5-year-old. But as we have occasion to see, probably every week in one way or another, the paradox that the highest level is dafka expressed in the lowest level. Where do you touch God himself? Not in heaven, but here. Over and over again. That's the big revolution of Torah as Chassidus has revealed it before Mashiach comes. It's a huge revolution that changes everything. Till Chassidus, it was, we're here to get there. Earth is a stepping stone for heaven. Chassidus is the opposite. That's on external level. On the deeper level, heaven serves earth. Here's the deepest connection. We're seeing this here. The Ramban says what we just said, but Rashi, as Chassidus reveals what Rashi is saying, is even deeper. And let's see what Rashi says. Let's revisit Rashi. Rashi says there's 2 vessels here, not one. The bottom is the 10 Commandments, that's true. But on top it's the Kapeires, and it's a separate vessel, as we explained, which means a separate intent when they made it. And when the Torah says put it into the ARK, the Luchas, don't put the top on first. Put it while it's only an ARK, and then place it. Don't complete it and then remove it, right? As we learned earlier. And then Rashi says it's a separate vessel. So what is it on top? Oh, on top is children. What's children? Yidden. The boy and the girl represent the Neshamas Yisrael, Jewish children. We're all Jewish children. And below, in the ARK below, is the Torah of the 10 Commandments. Gewald, Rashi is telling us, as the Rebbe explains it, a Yid is higher than Torah. It's 2 separate vessels. Torah is God's will and God's wisdom, and it's very lofty and very profound, obviously, and the most sacred of God's revelations. But a Yid and the Neshama is not a revelation of God. It's not his will, not his wisdom. A Yid is a part of him. Whatever that means, we can't even explain it But you're my child, says the Eibishter. The child is a piece of you. The child is not the result of your intelligence and your will and your wisdom, which is a very deep part of you. Your ideas are a very deep part of you, a very intimate part of you. Your innermost thoughts. But your child is more than your idea. Child comes from the essence of who you are. An extension of you. A piece of you. A yid is a piece of me, says the Eibishter. And that sits on top of the Torah. So have you heard me say many times, so if a yid is higher than Torah, what do I need the Torah for? If a Jew is a Jew, whether he keeps or chas v'shalom doesn't keep Torah mitzvahs, and what's the answer is the Torah mitzvahs is to reveal that spark, to reveal my Jewishness. My source is a part of God. I don't feel that here in my body. Hashem wants us to reveal, unlock the essence of who we are as we are here in the body, souls and body, and illuminate the world with it. And how do you do that? Through Torah. So Rashi is deeper. Rashi is unlocking the essence of the soul. The Ramban is talking about, they're not arguing. The Ramban is talking about the soul in the body. Here I am in this world. How do I connect to God? Look at it. Go to the Beis HaMikdash, metaphorically. Observe the Torah, do the mitzvahs. Connect to spirituality, the angels. Torah connects us to the heavenly world. That's how you'll connect. True. That's talking about the neshama in the body. Rashi unlocks, but there's a level of the neshama that's higher than the angels and higher than Torah and part of Hashem. That's the essence of who I am. So on a deeper level, I'm not becoming, I'm not connecting because I'm fundamentally disconnected. What I'm really doing is connecting the external part of me with the internal part of me. That's what's really happening. Torah reveals me, doesn't define me and create me. And that's why the Rabbi said it's called kapoides. The ARK cover is called kapoides. Listen very carefully to this beautiful, beautiful teaching. Kapoides, I say the word kapoides, what does it ring? Yom Kippur. The simple meaning is cover. It means a cover. But it also hints to Kippur, atonement. Atonement. Kippur, kaporet. What's the connection? Where does atonement come from? Think about this for a second. You know, Hashem gave us Torah mitzvahs. If a person sins, here's the way you connect. If you sin, you disconnect. You're disconnected, and they're finished. Well, you can't fix that. You broke it. Simple example. You're given a recipe. Here's how you make the cake. Please follow the instructions. Or, you know, build your car or make your phone. And you don't follow the instructions. A cake is a better example because once it's cooked, it's too late. That cake is finished. You could try another time, but that's over. Yet the power of teshuvah is able to redeem and rectify the past. How can it do that? The answer is because teshuvah draws on a level of my soul that was never disconnected. Even when I sinned, I was disconnecting externally, but my essence remained always one with you. That's Rashi, the kapoides, the boy and girl, the Jewish child within each and every one of us was always innocent and remained forever innocent. And that's where teshuvah comes from. How am I able to cleanse? By drawing on a level of me that was never sullied. That's where the cleansing comes from. And that's why it's never, ever too late. Because the core of me is always one with Hashem. And teshuvah unlocks that. That's no easy task. But it does. And on a deeper level, we'll conclude with this. So Rashi is saying, God speaks to us. God speaks to us from the kapoides. According to the Ramban, it's very simple. I'm here and God's in heaven and he talks to us through the angel and the Torah. That's how God communicates. Rashi is saying a moedidika thing. V'nayadati lecha shama, I will meet you there, says Hashem. Mibein shnei kruvim, I will speak from the two kruvim. God speaks to us from the depth of who we are. He speaks to us from within us, through us, because you are a part of me. My words are not foreign, not something else. That's who you are. This has to be explained further. It's not coming from heaven. The words aren't coming from heaven to me. The words are coming from within my own self. The Torah, God is talking and unlocking my child. I'm unlocking who you are. You're a piece of holiness. And these words I'm telling you are just expressing you, meaning expressing how you and I are one. You and I are one. And the words of Torah are not foreign to you. They're part of who you are, they're part of who we are. With every word that I'm telling you, and every mitzvah that I'm giving you, my child, we become one here in this world, embracing your body on a conscious level, illuminating the world. That's the deepest communication, not coming externally, but echoing and resonating from within the depth of our neshama. And this is what Rashi, the paradox, he wrote a simple commentary for a child. The simple commentary contains within it the greatest depth. All right, my dear friends, I hope we were a little bit successful in conveying this. Rashi and Ramban, and I invite you to share this to whatever degree that you would like at your Shabbos table tonight. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you.
Shabbos,
Shabbos,
everyone. Have a great day.
Share good news.
Shkoyach.
What? Daddy,
Shkoyach.
Daddy, where's Kika?
No, see you on that 1 second. Okay.